what moves the market in the draft are quarterbacks. And you realize, all right, most likely the number one pick is going to be a quarterback. The next decision maybe is going to be dependent on which teams like Shedeur Sanders. Many people are speculating maybe Shedeur ends up falling out of the first round completely. But there is a quarterback out of Louisville, I believe, that kind of is starting to make some waves. And with that said, there are some teams that still have other needs, like the Giants, that may end up taking Abdul Carter or a different position that may want to get back up into the first round. And that makes sense. That's where, you realize the Browns are interested in the quarterback. They're sitting there at the top of the second round. Teams around with the Browns are sitting with the 33rd pick. The Lions are sitting at 28. So this is the intro part where we discuss, there is an opportunity and a benefit now and maybe a market. I wrote on Lions on SI that there's a reason that maybe Brad Holmes could add some significant capital, because where the Lions currently sit and to set the table, because they're a good football team, and this is predicated on the fact they're a 15-win team, and because, like you just look at in the first round, the Lions are picking 28th. So in each round of the draft, they're picking lower and lower. So the Lions could look to add capital in higher spots in the second round, maybe higher than 60, maybe a spot between 30 and 60. Maybe in the third round, you find a spot a little bit higher than where you are. So the value of the Lions picks is not that great because they're a good football team. So how could you add to that? Maybe trading back, adding one or two more picks in this draft, maybe replenish. I think you don't have a pick in the fifth round, I believe, in this draft. So you have an opportunity there, or you could just move up in the rounds you're already in order to then maybe package those picks to maneuver around. You see what I'm saying in regards to using additional picks that you acquire in a trade to then package them to move up to get the guys that you want. So there is an argument to be made. And the point of all that is I could see the value of trading out of number 28. I could legitimately see it in a reasonable way, not just throwing it out there. I think a reasonable option, because of how much first round picks cost and then tying to a fifth year option. If you want to go lower on your salary cap, and you think you have a cluster of players in the second round that you can take, I like the idea of maybe peeking some phone calls to the Giants and Steelers and seeing if they want to get back in the first round.
Yeah, I think that those two teams that you just mentioned, along with Cleveland and New Orleans, I think are four teams. And then you can even maybe sprinkle in Las Vegas here at the top of the second round. And so the thing to watch on draft night, where does Shedeur Sanders land? Because, in December, if you'd asked me that question when he's wearing New York Giants cleats and prancing around New York, I think that there was a legitimate case that he was going to go number 3 overall. And if he goes number 3 overall, then this thing is off and running. Because then you talk about New Orleans at 9. Are they going to go quarterback? I think if Shedeur gets past New York and he falls to 9, does New Orleans look at him? And if New York and New Orleans both pass on Shedeur Sanders, then he could fall as far as 21 to Pittsburgh. And at that point, you have to start thinking, if you're a team that's outside the first round and you're Cleveland and you're New York, why would you not go back into that first round? Because the value of a fifth-year option with quarterbacks especially, that is huge. The fifth-year option on quarterbacks can be massive because it gives you an extra year team control where you're not going to, with the salary cap increase, by the time this class of rookies gets around to their second contract, quarterbacks might be making $70 million a year. And because of that, if you're Cleveland and you're sitting at 33, why would you not try to bump up 3-4 spots, get into the first round, and get a guy that you can get on the fifth-year option? And it's funny the way that it all works out, but because of how valuable that is, I think the Lions will have a market on draft night for their 28th pick, especially if Sanders falls to 21 and now Jackson Dart is sitting there at 28. Dart and Tyler Show, and the people are all over the place on Jalen Milroe, but he's the most polished running quarterback we've seen in terms of his ability to run. And if he figures out the passing aspect of it, he's going to be dangerous. So those three guys are kind of all in that next pod. And so if a team like Cleveland says, hey, you know what? We want Jackson Dart. We know he's going to sit a year. Let's go get him on a fifth-year option, as opposed to waiting. And with you look at the trade value charts and all that stuff, the difference of moving up 5 spots is not going to break the bank. And so I think that Detroit will certainly have a market for whoever to come up and get a quarterback or an edge rusher or an offensive lineman. But I think if there's a guy at either of those positions, the Lions should just stick and pick them. But I do think that there's going to be an opportunity for them to add picks on draft night based on how that board shakes out. And again, you got to look out, where does Shedeur Sanders land? That's going to tell the whole story on the quarterback market.